I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately. I wanted to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life. To put rout all that was not life, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. What does it mean to discover you have not lived? I'm Alexander Gray. This is Vertigo. And these words have been haunting me lately. Not in the way a ghost haunts an empty house, but in the way dawn haunts the night, a persistent reminder of what's possible. When I first heard them in Dead Poets Society, I was too young to understand. I thought living deliberately meant doing extraordinary things, climbing mountains, writing novels, changing the world. Now, I realize it's about something far more terrifying. The violence of choosing to be awake when it's easier to sleepwalk through existence. Last night at 3 a.m., I couldn't sleep. You know those moments when your phone screen goes dark and suddenly you see your reflection? There I was, in my bed, scrolling mindlessly through other people's lives. Another night of promising myself tomorrow will be different. Another night of watching time slip through my fingers like water. And in the dark screen, I saw something I've been trying not to see. A face getting older. Waiting for a life I keep postponing. Let me tell you about the quiet violence of just existing. Man is least himself when he talks in his own person. Give him a mask and he will tell you the truth. Oscar Wilde wrote that, long before we all started wearing digital masks. Long before we learned to hide behind screens that sometimes, accidentally, turn into mirrors. There's something peculiar about our relationship with reflections these days. We don't just catch ourselves in mirrors anymore. We find our faces staring back at us from black screens, frozen Zoom calls, darkened windows of subway cars. These encounters with ourselves come without warning. Netflix asks, "Are you still watching?" And the screen goes dark. No preparation, no defense, just you, reflected in the void between episodes. Waiting, watching, witnessed by your own eyes. Fight Club had it right. This is your life, and it's ending 1 minute at a time. But we've found new ways to look away, haven't we? New screens to hide behind, new filters to mask what we don't want to see. You know what fascinates me about Walter Mitty? It's not his daydreams. It's that empty photo negative he keeps staring at. That blank space where something meaningful should be. How many of us carry that same empty frame within us? That same negative space where our life should be. Sometimes I wonder if Plato got it wrong about his cave. Maybe the shadows we're watching aren't cast on walls anymore. They're streaming, scrolling, sliding up and down our screens. Little fragments of other people's lives that we mistake for living. The other night, I caught myself counting. 3 hours had passed just scrolling. 3 hours of watching other people's vacations, their achievements, their carefully curated moments. And in the reflection of my phone screen, I saw what I was really doing. I was watching life instead of living it. That's the thing about these accidental mirrors. They don't just show us our faces. They show us our choices, our postponements, our small surrenders. And maybe that's why we keep scrolling, keep watching, keep distracting ourselves, because in every dark screen, in every accidental reflection, we risk seeing the truth that Fight Club tried to warn us about. This is our life. And it's not just ending 1 minute at a time, it's ending one scroll at a time, one episode at a time, one, "I'll do it tomorrow," at a time. But here's what I've started to realize about these mirrors. These unwanted moments of self-reflection. They're not our enemies. They're wake-up calls, little interventions from a part of ourselves that refuses to sleep through our own existence. The most common form of despair is not being who you are. Kierkegaard wrote these words long before our age of endless scrolling, but he saw something we're living now, the quiet despair of avoiding ourselves. Thoreau understood this long before smartphones and Netflix, when he wrote, "The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation." But I think he missed something darker. It's not just desperation anymore. It's something more like submission, a willing surrender to numbness. I noticed it the other day. That moment when discomfort starts creeping in, when the silence gets too loud, when your thoughts start to surface. What do? We reach for the nearest escape, a feed, a show, a distraction, anything to drown it out. There's this scene in The Matrix that haunts me. When Cypher is eating the steak, he knows it isn't real. He knows he's choosing the lie. But he takes the bite anyway and says, "Ignorance is bliss." How many times have I done the same thing? Choosing the comfortable lie over the uncomfortable truth. Netflix autoplay over self-reflection. Endless scrolling over actual feeling. Bukowski saw it coming. Something else is hurting you. That's why you need pot or whiskey. That's why you need to get laid. That's why you need to scroll through social media until your eyes blur. Well, he didn't say that last part. But he understood the mechanism. The need to numb what we don't want to feel. You know what's strange? We've become so good at numbing ourselves that we've started calling it self-care. I need a distraction. I deserve to shut off. I just want to stop thinking for a while. But here's the thing about numbness. Like any drug, you need more and more of it. One episode becomes a season. One scroll becomes an hour. One quick check of your email becomes a lifetime of avoiding yourself. In the depth of winter, I finally learned that within me there lay an invincible summer. Camus wrote that. But I wonder, how many summers have we let pass by, saying, not yet, not today, tomorrow? There's a special kind of violence in that word, tomorrow, a soft violence, like water dripping on stone. It doesn't break anything immediately. It just wears away, slowly, persistently, until nothing remains of what could have been. Rilke knew this when he wrote, "Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final." But we've invented a new way of living, where we try to ensure no feeling happens at all. We postpone joy. We postpone pain. We postpone living. I have this note on my phone. It's been there for 3 years now. Start writing the book. 3 simple words that I see every morning when I check my notifications. 3 years of sliding past it to check social media. Of opening it at 2 a.m. with fierce determination. Of editing it from "start writing the book today" to just "start writing the book." Watching my own surrender in real time. Like a museum piece of my own procrastination. A small monument to the violence I commit against my future self. Each day I look at it, I'm killing a version of me that could have existed. A writer, a creator. Someone who didn't just dream about writing, but wrote. You know what's strange about postponement? It feels like self-preservation, like we're protecting ourselves. I'll do it when I'm ready. I'll start when the time is right. I'll live when conditions are perfect. But ready for what? Perfect for whom? The Japanese have this concept. The bittersweet awareness of life's impermanence. But we've twisted it, haven't we? Instead of this awareness making us seize the moment, we use it as another excuse to wait, to postpone, to delay. When I get the promotion, when I lose weight, when I move to a new city. We treat our lives like a movie that hasn't started yet, always waiting for the perfect opening scene, while our actual story, the only one we'll ever have, plays out in the background, unnoticed, unlived. Two roads diverged in a wood, Frost wrote. But how many roads did I pass by, pretending they weren't there? Life has this way of presenting us with doors, moments that suddenly appear, like cracks in the routine of our existence. A random call, a chance encounter, a 3 a.m. realization. You know that moment in Inception when Cobb has to decide whether he's in a dream? When he's holding his totem, staring at his children's faces, everything in him wants to accept this perfect moment, this comfortable reality. But here's the thing about these moments, these crossroads. We don't always recognize them when they're happening. Sometimes they come disguised as inconveniences, as disruptions to our carefully planned numbness. I remember one such moment, a friend calling late at night. Want to go for a drive? Nothing special, nothing dramatic, just a simple question. But in retrospect, that night changed everything. Because for once, I said yes instead of maybe tomorrow. These moments, they're like those dreams where you discover a new room in your house, a door that was always there, but somehow you never noticed it before. And suddenly, you have to decide, do you open it? Or do you keep pretending it doesn't exist? The Greeks had this concept, kairos, the right or opportune moment, a moment of possibility. But they never mentioned how terrifying these moments can be, how they force us to confront the comfort of our own imprisonment. The Greeks understood something else about these moments. They called it metanoia, the moment of transformative change, not just an opportunity, but a complete shift in how we see ourselves and our world. These moments don't just invite change, they reveal who we've always been, underneath our careful habits of avoidance. I think about all the metanoia moments I've missed. The conversations I didn't start. The risks I didn't take. The truths I didn't speak. Not because I couldn't, but because I was too comfortable in the familiar prison of who I thought I was. Because that's what it is, isn't it? Every time life presents us with a door, we're not just choosing between yes and no. We're choosing between who we are and who we might become. You are under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago. When Alan Watts said those words, he was offering us both a liberation and a terror. Because if we can change at any moment, then every moment becomes a choice, and every choice carries the weight of all we might become. I keep thinking about that helicopter in Walter Mitty, not just the moment of choice, but the seconds before, when possibility hangs in the air like a held breath, when the person you've always been stands face to face with the person you might become. The thing about these moments of choice, they don't announce themselves with fanfare. They whisper. They come in the small things, picking up the phone instead of scrolling past, speaking the truth instead of the comfortable lie, staying awake when everything in you begs to go numb. There's this weight that comes with realizing. Every moment is a door. Every breath is a choice. Every second contains within it the possibility of revolution. Kafka wrote, "The meaning of life is that it stops." And maybe that's exactly why each choice matters, because we don't have endless time to choose differently, to become different, to truly live. You know what's strange? We celebrate the big choices, the dramatic ones, quitting the job, ending the relationship, moving to a new country. But sometimes, the most courageous choices are almost invisible. Choosing to feel when numbness would be easier. Choosing to speak when silence would be safer. Choosing to live when merely existing would be enough. I've started to realize something about courage, about choice. It's not about waiting to feel ready. It's about being terrified and choosing anyway. It's about standing at the edge of your own possibility, looking into the darkness of what might be, and taking that step. Not because you're brave, but because the alternative, the slow death of never choosing, has finally become more frightening than the leap. Between the idea and the reality, between the motion and the act, falls the shadow. T.S. Eliot understood something about the lives we don't live, the shadows that follow us, the ghosts of our unmade choices. They walk beside us, don't they? The person we could have been, the life we might have lived, the dreams we let slip away, not with drama or tragedy, but with the quiet acceptance of maybe later, maybe someday. Fernando Pessoa wrote, "My past is everything I failed to be." There's something haunting about those words, something that catches in your throat at 3 a.m. when you're lying awake, counting the shadows on your ceiling, and the ghosts of your unlived lives are keeping you company. You know what's strange about regret? We think it's about the past, but it's really about the present, about the dialogue we have with our ghosts, the ongoing negotiation between who we are and who we might have been. I have this recurring dream. I'm standing in a room full of doors. Each one leads to a life I could have lived. But here's the thing that wakes me up in a cold sweat. I'm not afraid of the wrong choices I've made. I'm afraid of the right choices I've refused to make. Sometimes, in moments of strange clarity, I wonder if our ghosts are really ghosts at all. Maybe they're more like shadows cast by future possibilities. Reminders that even now, even here, we could choose differently. Nietzsche had this radical idea about loving your fate. Amor fati, he called it. Not just accepting, but embracing every moment of your life. The pain, the regrets, the mistakes, even the numbing scroll of social media, even the late-night reflections in dark screens. But here's what obsessed me about this concept. What does it mean to love your fate while being conscious of all your other possible fates? Can we love what is while mourning what could have been? Or perhaps, the ultimate act of amor fati is to love ourselves enough to choose differently now, to love our fate by actively creating it. Perhaps our ghosts fade with the coming dawn, not because they're exorcised, but because they transform. From haunting shadows of what could have been, into morning light illuminating what still could be. Every sunrise is an alchemical moment when regret can transmute into possibility, when our ghosts can become our guides. You could leave life right now. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Let that determine what you do and say and think." There's something about waking up early, before the world has put on its mask, before we've put on ours, when everything is possible again, when we could choose, finally, to truly live. It's strange, isn't it? How every morning carries within it the same question as Dead Poet Society. Will we live deliberately today, or will we just exist? There's this line from Benjamin Button that stays with me. I hope you live a life you're proud of. If you find that you're not, I hope you have the strength to start all over again. Because that's what each morning is, isn't it? A chance to start over, to choose again. You know what I've started doing? When my phone screen goes dark at night, instead of turning away from that reflection, I look at it, really look at it, and I ask myself, if this was my last night, would I be proud of how I lived this day? Sometimes the answer hurts. Sometimes it's a whispered no in the darkness. But here's what I'm learning. That no is not a failure. It's an invitation, a door opening to tomorrow. Because every morning, when the sun rises, when the city is still quiet, when possibilities hang in the air like morning mist, we get to choose again, to wake up, to be present, to live. Not in some grand, dramatic way, Not with fireworks and revelations, but in the small choices, the tiny revolutions, the quiet decisions to be awake in our own lives. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately. It's strange, coming back to these words now. At the end of another night of reflection, they mean something different. Perhaps living deliberately isn't what I thought it was. When I first heard them in Dead Poets Society, it's not about the woods at all, not about grand gestures or dramatic changes, or even about finding some perfect moment to begin. It's about these moments, right here. When we catch our reflection in a dark screen, when we stand before another morning, when we face another choice. You see, every day offers us the same invitation that Thoreau found in those woods. Every moment holds the same possibility: to wake up, to be present, to choose life over existence. The day moves like a symphony: allegro, morning rush; andante, afternoon drift; adagio, evening reflection. Until the night brings its cadenza of thoughts, and we face ourselves in the final movement of another day, of another choice, of another chance to truly begin. And maybe, just maybe, the most revolutionary thing we can do is to stop waiting for tomorrow, to stop rehearsing for a life we're not living, to look into those accidental mirrors, those dark screens, those quiet moments of truth, and finally choose to be alive, right here, right now. Because the woods, the real woods that Thoreau wrote about, they're not some distant place we need to journey to. They're right here, in this moment, in this breath, in this choice. And the marrow of life, the deep living we've been seeking, it's not hiding in some future version of ourselves. It's here, in the courage to be awake, in the small revolutions of choosing presence over numbness, truth over comfort, life over mere existence. So maybe, the next time your screen goes dark and you see your reflection staring back, remember, that's not just a mirror you're looking into. It's a door, and it's waiting for you to walk through it. Because in the end, the question isn't whether we'll die. The question is whether we'll live, really live, before we do. So, what will you choose?